all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life, I've been grinding all my life. Look.
Welcome to JMS Podcast, where we don't sugarcoat it, we just speak the truth. Thank you for listening and sharing and liking it. Again, this podcast is for the community. Any coach, director, leader, parent, if you have any subjects that you want to jump in to discuss, please reach out to me at any time. In this episode, what we're going to jump into and talk about is the alphabet soup, what people refer to all the leagues, and just my point of view from when I first started. So I've been coaching in North Texas about 18 years. Really, in today's landscape, as a parent, kind of feel bad for a parent trying to navigate all the leagues, but it's just something to educate and just share my experience of what I think. Back in 2005, when I first started coaching, I had no idea what academy was. So coaching girls at 4 years old to the rec association and registered them as a rec team. From my understanding at that point, they had to go through a player pool and players had to sign. So it was very different from what I remembered as a kid, or maybe that's just the way recreation had worked. But I remember playing rec and playing with my friends and didn't really have to go through a player pool. It was a coach. Oh, I went to this practice and they registered. So maybe at that time in rec, they didn't want all-star teams to be formed. So we were in rec, and my niece and another player, they were very, very athletic and talented. They were just head and shoulders above the rest. And I remember in our first year, completely dominated because of those two little girls. The rec association wanted us to move up an age group. And we were like, well, the other girls that are barely learning, getting introduced, they're probably going to not, have a good experience because they'll be afraid of the ball. These are 4-year-olds. So I started doing my homework and talking to some friends of mine. They're like, are you going to do academy? And I was like, what's academy? I didn't know what academy was. So I started doing my homework and asking questions. And back then I learned about an academy league that was run through USYSA, and it was called PAL, for the people that remember PAL. So from what I understood, that academy league was for U9s and U10s. So even if you're U7, U8, and you were at a higher level, you couldn't play in that league. You had to be U9. The other thing is that the association, North Texas, required you to register through Home Association for the Academy League. And if you played on a rec team, you had to make your rec team priority. So that's kind of something that I remembered. But I had high goals, high expectations. I wanted to play academy right away. And that's when a friend of mine told me, go play SDL. I was like, what's SDL? And that stood for Super Developmental League. It was U.S. Club Soccer. They'll say they'll accept your team. So we went to go play SDL. Immediately, I recognized the level of playing against teams like the Texans, FC Dallas, the Stings of the world. And so I found the competition I was looking for our top team. I still felt like the kids needed to have fun and develop. So we played rec and we played academy. So until we started getting into a select, at that point, there was only one league that everybody was gunning for, shooting for, and that was a Classic League. Back when we played in Classic League, you had a qualifying tournament, and they accepted the top 10 teams in Division I, the next 10 in Division II, the next 10 in Division III. So you had 30 teams, and all based off that qualifying tournament. After that, it was promotion, relegation, and Classic League still exists today. That's how it works. I think that's how it works as far as promotion, relegation. So during that time, we made Division I and there was no other league outside of Classic League. You couldn't play in two Classic Leagues. You couldn't share dual roster players. You were on that team. That was your select team. So from a competition perspective, it was very competitive. Every game was competitive. And ECNL was introduced, and it was maybe 30, 40 clubs at that time, started growing. But in Classic League, as you got into U13, if you won State Cup, and then you advanced to regionals, and then you advanced to nationals, the following year, you earned a buy into Regional Premier League, or you earned a buy into National League. That was kind of your award for being one of the top teams. U14, that's when ECNL began at that point. And I remember at U13, everybody was like, we're going to play ECNL, we're going to go play ECNL. Our team stayed together, and we ended up doing National League. So the only other platform besides ECNL that I remember that was competitive was National League, and National League was very competitive. The difference is it was 2 showcase tournaments. So you played in North Carolina, maybe played 4 games, and then you traveled to Las Vegas and played 3. If you won National League, you got to buy straight into USYSA Nationals. And so that's kind of the pathway that we kind of took to set our own platform, give our players the exposure in the competition. Well, in 2017, 2018, the Federation announced that they were creating DA, Developmental Academy. As soon as that happened, I realized I knew the days of us being relative in a smaller league with no platform are numbered. So at that time, I was speaking to Hugh Bradford, director of the Feeders. They were just an all-girls club, and we had girls and boys, and realized I needed that platform. And I remember everybody was like, we don't need them. We don't need them. We have a good club. And I told all the coaches, we have a good club, but times change. You know, there's Walmart, there's Sam's, you know, the mom and pop store that used to sell Jordans and Nikes. Now Nike's not selling them, whether it's for cost, for delivery, shipping. They're not ordering as much. You know, now it's just the big stores that are getting the product. So that's what I kind of envisioned. And I told the coaches, more leagues are going to start being created. And sure enough, DA now was competing with ECNL. Soon after, I think it was like the first year, DA ended up introducing a second league under the DA clubs. And I believe it was DPL, Developmental Premier League, or FDL. And so then the ECNL clubs were like, we need a platform for our players to also develop. So we started ECNL Regional League. It was a pilot league in North Texas that had took off. Well, you wanted more people that weren't ECNL or DA, started having other leagues, whether it was EAL or DPL or MPL, and all these leagues started popping up. And you still have Frontier Conference League, FCL, you still have FDL. And then when DA folded and they announced that they no longer were going to exist, all of a sudden, no boys DA, no girls DA. On the girls side, created GA, Girls Academy. And then on the boys side, they created MLS. So throughout this year, now you're in 2018, 20, 21, there have been other leagues, National League Pro, Elite 64, DPL still around for, I believe, the GA clubs. Now we have ECNL Regional League, and ECNL Regional League North Texas. You know, for me, I could tell you now on the girls' side, the highest level in US, and this is just my opinion, it's ECNL. ECNL, that's where the top clubs are going to play. Not saying there's not good clubs in GA. I'm not saying that, and I'm not trying to say GA it's not a good product or brand, but ECNL is the top dog. That's where the best competition you're going to find. And he goes, and RL, it's all the ECNL clubs' second team. It's great competition. ECNL Regional League North Texas is more central, less traveling. There's smaller traveling, but ECNL Regional League North Texas here and RL, you play for the same playoffs. There's a playoff, and then you go into a RL National Championship. But I think with RL North Texas, there's less travel. So I think that's kind of the difference, because the ECNL clubs really put their second team the strongest in RL. The level might be higher, but there's some clubs that don't have ECNL platform that play in RL North Texas, and that's the club's first team. So their team might be a little bit better. So it's kind of like every age group is different. So that's kind of like the history of North Texas. Today, the reason I'm talking about this is because several players come up to me and say, "Hey, coach, I made an ECNL roster." And I kind of look and say, "Okay, which team, which coach?" And they'll tell me the coach, and it's not an ECNL team, but they feel that they made an ECNL roster, which they really made an ECNL Regional League or ECNL Regional League North Texas. Parents are confused. They really don't know until after they sign. Then they start getting smarter. I always tell parents, it's your job to do your due diligence, to ask questions, to look and do all your research, because it's very complicated. And again, one of the things I could tell you as a parent, my advice is to focus and look for the best possible coach, the best possible team for your daughter or son for their level, where maybe the team's going to challenge them, where they're not the very best or they're not the worst. And but it's my advice, focus on that. And after that, you can start doing your research every year. Is my daughter or son getting challenged in this environment? Do I need to make a change? Before you make a change, just ask around. Don't just take somebody's word. Oh, you have to play for this club, because if you don't play for this club, no college coach Division I's going to recruit you. That is, if you believe that, you're so gullible. Those coaches want talent. We just heard the news of Maria Sanchez, highest paid player in NWSL. She didn't play club soccer from Idaho. And she's the highest paid player. Nobody cared whether she played for club A, Y, Z. At the end, you're talented, you're passionate about something, find your coach that's going to push you, develop you, challenge you, tell you the truth. Don't just tell you what you want to hear, but hold you accountable. There's no shortcuts, but in this North Texas culture environment, with all the multiple platforms, parents are getting misled or lied to. So I would just tell you, it's any coach, parent, player wants to jump in on this podcast to talk about platforms that I miss or I'm not as educated, such as GA or MLS, because those are platforms that our club's not in. We're an ECNL club on the boys and the girls. And for us, ECNL is a great, great league. The competition, they do a great job of their showcase tournaments. And again, but this platform is for the community. So if you're a GA club, a leader, a director, or MLS, and you want to come in on the boys' side to talk about what that product or league, because I'm not well educated on those, feel free, reach out. Again, that's what I have on this week's episode on the Alphabet Soup. Thank you for listening to JMS, where we don't sugarcoat it, we just speak the truth.